This just in, Vince McMahon can be a bit nutty. With that comes anger. There's no denying that Vince McMahon can hold some serious grudges, especially when it comes to wrestlers who previously competed in a rival promotion. Here are 10 times he punished former WCW wrestlers. We won't punish you if you don't follow TheSportster on YouTube, but we still hope you'll join our notification team by hitting that bell and subscribe. Dusty Rhodes. You'd think the WWE would welcome with open arms a 3-time World Heavyweight and 2-time World 6-Man Tag Team Champion from Jim Crockett Promotions, the company that eventually bought WCW, especially when that particular wrestler was also a former booker who helped create the Starrcade event and was one of the first WWF, not a typo, wrestlers. But that's not how bitter rivalries work. Even before the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes arrived on Vincent K. McMahon's WWE scene, the promotion had already insulted him by naming Ted DiBiase's manservant Virgil after Dusty's actual name. And when Rhodes joined their ranks in 1989, he was given the gimmick of Common Man, relegated to opening matches and forced to dance while wearing a yellow polka-dotted singlet that served no other purpose than to humiliate the WWE's former rival. In his early vignettes, Rhodes was portrayed as having a number of blue-collar jobs, like being a plumber, gas station attendant, and pizza delivery man, and they all ended with other people recognizing him as a former star. Thankfully, Rhodes was allowed to ditch the dots after about a year, and although he could soon be seen bouncing around the WCW, ECW, and independent circuit, he was eventually inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame on March 31st, 2007. R.I.P. Dream. Barry Windham. After leaving the WWE twice, Barry Windham wasn't treated too kindly when he returned to the promotion for a third stint in 1996, especially after they previously gave him a 4-month-long undefeated streak in an earlier tenure. Although Barry Windham might not be a household name, the capable wrestler enjoyed quite a bit of success with WCW in the early 90s as a member of the Four Horsemen stable alongside Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, and Sid Vicious. In fact, he had won the unified WCW World Tag Team Championship and NWA World Tag Team Championship, as well as the NWA World Heavyweight Championship just before leaving the promotion to rehab an injury. When he signed with WWE for his third and final stint, he was given a camouflage gimmick as the Stalker and only appeared in a single pay-per-view event when he was defeated at Survivor Series 1996 by Goldust. Windham was repackaged as a member of the New Blackjacks with Justin Hawk Bradshaw the following year. But the tag team found no success, and Windham soon turned on Bradshaw to join Jim Cornette's NWA faction in January 1998, an angle that was also scrapped after just a few months. Having been constantly punished instead of pushed, Windham quit and returned to the WCW. Big Van Vader. Vince McMahon punished wrestlers for being former WCW competitors, and he punished others simply because he didn't like them. In the case of Big Van Vader, it was both. Right from the get-go in 1996, Vince allegedly made it clear that he didn't care for the monster heel, with rumors swirling that McMahon insulted his weight and general appearance behind the scenes. In reality, it was probably more about McMahon not wanting to give the time of day to a bad guy created in another promotion, evidenced by the fact that the boss tried to get Vader to change his name to the Mastodon. Vince also didn't want to let the former rival heel harm any of his precious babyfaces, including Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. So instead, McMahon stashed away Vader on mid-level cards and never let him reach his full potential with the promotion. Need more convincing? Just consider that Vader won numerous championships with New Japan Pro Wrestling, the Cage Wrestling Association, the Universal Wrestling Association, and WCW, but never, after nearly 3 years, won a belt in the WWE. Vader could have become one of the promotion's biggest heels in both size and notoriety, but was constantly booked improperly and eventually relegated to being a jobber to the stars, the Public Enemy. The tag team known as the Public Enemy consisted of Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge, who competed with ECW and WCW before signing with WWE in early 1999. The duo had actually been previously courted by McMahon's promotion, but they instead chose to go with the rival WCW at the time. If you think their eventual signing indicated that the boss had forgiven this past indiscretion, then you clearly don't know Vincent K. McMahon. The Public Enemy only lasted 2 months in the WWE, and their most notable appearance was a squash match in which they lost to the Acolytes, a tag team made up of Bradshaw and Farouk. Not exactly a glamorous run, to say the least, either due to Public Enemy's previous allegiance to the WCW, or their overall cocky and superior attitude, or both. Or maybe JBL just likes to shoot on people. Although the Public Enemy shoot was never totally confirmed, we at least know for sure that numerous wrestlers and backstage personnel held grudges against Rocco and Johnny, and that McMahon certainly wasn't a fan of them either based on how he booked their matches. Looks like the Public Enemy wasn't just a meaningless name. Diamond Dallas Page. You'd think Vince McMahon would want to reward former WCW star Diamond Dallas Page for being one of the first wrestlers to accept a buyout of their contracts in order to immediately join the WWE. This, however, was not the case, as Vince immediately placed DDP into a ridiculous storyline where he was creepily revealed to be stalking The Undertaker's then-wife, Sarah. Although it was later revealed that Paige was only using Sarah to get into a match against her husband, this didn't mean Vince was willing to forget the fact that Dallas previously became one of the top wrestlers in the world without his help. Instead, Paige fled from the eventual bout against the Dead Man at King of the Ring 2001 with his tail between his legs, was defeated by him again at that year's SummerSlam, and at one point was even pinned by Sarah herself. For the remainder of his contract, which was allowed to expire in 2002 due to numerous nagging injuries, DDP was relegated to the lowest levels of WWE into something of a jobber role. He did win a title though, the European one. Blech. Although he was absolutely buried by McMahon, Page was nevertheless inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2017. Now that we've reached the halfway point, let's pause for a quiz question. At the July 21, 2001 WWE WCW crossover event WWE Invasion, which wrestler notoriously defected from Team WWE to Team WCW in the inaugural Brawl main event? Buff Bagwell. After a decade and 5 World Tag Team Championships, Buff Bagwell ditched the sinking WCW in favor of the WWE. In fact, Bagwell was one of the first wrestlers to accept a contract buyout. However, just a week after his July 2, 2001 television debut, Buff showed up to work for Raw and was informed that he was being released from his contract. The reasoning stemmed from Bagwell's alleged bad attitude, which began as soon as he joined the company. Obviously, as he only lasted 7 days and ticked off everyone from his fellow wrestlers to the front office to Vince and Shane McMahon themselves. Accusations also emerged that Bagwell faked an injury during a July 3rd event in order to get time off, and even that his mom called to complain about the injury. And all this was just too much for WWE to deal with. If you ask Bagwell, he still claims to have no idea why he was actually fired. It's likely that many of the WCW wrestlers, even the biggest stars, had short leashes, and when they acted out like the boorish Bagwell, they were quickly kicked to the curb by an impatient and still bitter boss, Scott Steiner. In the late 90s with WCW, Scott Steiner was finally carving out a significant niche for himself in the wrestling world. He had just changed up his look, opting to rock bleached blonde hair, chainmail headgear, sunglasses, and an obvious increase in muscle mass, in addition to a new, unpredictable, loose cannon personality. In fact, just before the WCW folded, Steiner became a Triple Crown champion by winning the World Heavyweight, United States Heavyweight, and World Tag Team belts during his tenure. But instead of sticking with what worked, Vince insisted on reinventing Steiner to make him his own creation, and senselessly booked the aging wrestler into an extended 18-minute match against Triple H at the 2003 Royal Rumble. Although both wrestlers looked terrible, Steiner was declared the winner. But the belt didn't change hands, as the reigning champ had lost due to a disqualification. After this mismanaged booking, the two faced each other again in a disappointing match at No Way Out, and Steiner was subsequently and repeatedly knocked down the card. Instead of protecting and properly utilizing this former star, McMahon and the WWE scapegoated and abandoned Big Papa Pump halfway into his 3-year contract. Goldberg. Goldberg was the biggest star in the WCW when the promotion folded, meaning it should have been easy to move him over to the WWE brand. Should is the key word here. Sure, Big Bill had a solid debut where he successfully speared the People's Champion, and he also eventually hoisted the World Heavyweight Championship belt, but his tenure was mismanaged by McMahon, and we're not so sure that it was unintentional. For example, Goldberg made his name in the WCW by compiling a 155-0 undefeated streak and quickly eliminating his enemies. But in the WWE, he had to compete in longer, more grueling matches that didn't always cast him in the best light. He also had a chance to be put over in a match against Triple H at SummerSlam 2003, but was denied, possibly due to a previous real-life war of words between the two. Don't forget, 2003 was the same year Trips became Vince's son-in-law. In the end, after just 1 year, WCW's biggest star found himself getting booed at his final WWE event, a match at WrestleMania 20 that ended with a victory by Goldberg, who nevertheless received a parting stunner from Stone Cold Steve Austin on his way out. Thankfully, Goldberg was brought back to the WWE in 2016 and was actually treated quite well. Better late than never, right? Eric Bischoff. When it comes to punishing past WCW personnel, the most obvious victim was Eric Bischoff. After all, the guy was the former president of the entire promotion. However, Eric's situation is a bit different from the rest of these entries, as he debuted as the manager of Raw on July 15, 2002, and actually enjoyed a very successful run as a heel. The only catch? He had to be repeatedly punished in storylines for his ties to WCW. After all, in addition to Bischoff putting up with constant heat and booing from the fans, he also had to endure a seemingly endless amount of embarrassing situations at the expense of his own dignity. Let us count the ways. There was his 2003 no disqualification match against Trish Stratus, which stipulated that Bischoff would get to spend a night with the diva if he won, and was so creepy that even the ever-pervy Jerry Lawler felt uncomfortable. Next year, Bischoff was entered into a feud with his pseudo-nephew, that special little guy known as Eugene, which culminated in Eric getting his head shaved at Taboo Tuesday. He also received a stink face from Rikishi, was constantly bullied by Stone Cold Steve Austin, and seemed to always be begging Vince McMahon not to fire him. If you have any doubts that McMahon treated Bischoff like trash, allow us to remind you of the time in 2005 that Eric was canned, FU'd by John Cena, and thrown into a garbage truck by Vince himself. Sting. Sting was arguably the biggest holdout after the WCW folded, as he participated in contract talks with WWE in 2002, but ultimately spent the next 12 years with World Wrestling All-Stars and TNA. When he finally signed in 2014, it looked like the WWE was priming him to join the ranks of their top stars as they teased and promoted the heck out of his arrival and positioned him to face Triple H, the face of the entire promotion, in a one-on-one at WrestleMania 31. When that day arrived, the two grappled for nearly 19 minutes, the event's longest bout, but Sting shockingly lost. Then again, maybe it wasn't so shocking. After the match, the two wrestlers shook hands while the ringside commentators opined that the rivalry between the WCW and WWE had finally been settled. Of course, in McMahon's head, settling things meant getting revenge and sticking it to his former rival one last time. However, this actually wasn't the last time, as Sting was also handed a loss at his next big event, 2015's Night of Champions. There's no telling what would have followed in Sting's WWE career, as he legitimately injured his neck in this match and announced his retirement on April 2, 2016. During the 2001 WWE Invasion inaugural brawl, Stone Cold Steve Austin shockingly defected from Team WWE to help Booker T pin Kurt Angle for the WCW win. Then again, maybe it wasn't so shocking, as Austin was a WCW wrestler back in the early 90s. Are there any other wrestlers who were punished in the WWE for being a former member of the WCW? Why do you think some wrestlers who crossed over were welcomed with open arms? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to like and share this video. For more wrestling action and nostalgia, subscribe to TheSportster on YouTube.